too frightened to reveal her true identity. The flying disc test took place at night in the desert a few miles from the base.
I was at that moment standing on the deck of the radar van. It was nighttime, and I was looking up in the sky because there were saucers up there. There were 10 to 15 saucers, and they were glowing orange on the bottom. The one that was closest to me, I could see in pretty good detail. I was standing with a group of people of whom I did not know any of them, and they did not appear to know each other. So it seemed like we were all very isolated. No one was talking to anyone. It was very frightening, because what I was seeing was definitely something that was very highly classified, and there was a couple of people talking inside the radar van who I assumed were officers, but no one was wearing any rank insignia and no one was wearing any name tags. The maneuvers that they executed were very sophisticated, so my guess is that they were being piloted by aliens who knew exactly what maneuvers they could do.
As part of the test, she was taken to what she believes was Area 51.
We were taken to a medical facility that was very sophisticated. Someone came and took me into an examining room, and they had me lay down on a stainless steel table. And someone came in through the door, walked around the table up beside the right side of my head, saying in a real deadpan, monotone voice, "Stay calm, stay calm, stay calm." When he got up by the side of my head, he had a hypodermic needle hidden in his hand. He brought it up, and it went straight into the right side of my neck, and whatever chemical it was went straight to the brain.
It has taken her over 10 years to come forward with this information.
It has been very difficult to talk about this. It's almost like every time I relate the story, it gets a little easier, but when I first started talking about it, it was like my mouth didn't even want to form the words, and the sound didn't even want to come out of my throat. So I can only guess from that there is a very strong suggestion given to me not to talk about this, not to remember it, and if I did remember it, not to ever talk about it to anyone. Okay, so as you can see, it's a long journey from doing that in shadow back in 1996 to being in front of you today in the full lights. Thanks. Thank you. Thanks. There were some errors and omissions in that information that Bruce Burgess put out. Maybe just, thoughtless errors on his part, but I just wanted to clear a few of those up. I did not contact him. I had actually related a bit of my story to Glenn Campbell, who had the Area 51 Research Center in Rachel, Nevada at that time. And it was Glenn Campbell that put me in touch with Bruce Burgess, because Bruce was looking for people that had testimony to offer. So they contacted me. I did not contact him. I left the Air Force in 1983, not 1985. And the Nevada test site is more than a few miles from Nellis Air Force Base. It's 65 miles to the Mercury Gate and probably 100 or more to Area 51. And many people don't really understand the anatomy of the Nevada test site. There's like a section that's the Nevada test site. Then there's the bombing and gunnery range attached to Tonopah, attached to Talitha Peak. Within the Nevada test site, there are many areas that are all numbered. There's 21, 25, 32, 35, 34. There's many different areas out there, all with a designated number. When I was working at area, I think it was 25, I'm not sure right now, but it was the place where they were having the Yucca Mountain Project, which was where I worked for SAIC. And we called it Jackass Flats, and I thought that was a very good name for the place because the idea of putting a nuclear waste repository in a place where there are signs of old volcanic activity is a dicey proposition at best. So that covers kind of the Nevada test site. I didn't really discover the missing time until much later after separating from the military. The memories I retrieved were from hypnosis. I felt that the television audience should have been informed of that so they could make up their own mind. They shouldn't have been left with the impression that it was consciously recalled. And there's a reason that it wasn't consciously recalled. It was because of the trauma that was experienced caused, if you saw Fred Burke's presentation, he talked about multiple personality disorder or dissociative identity disorder, as it's now called. And definitely when you're put under severe trauma, you disassociate. And part of you just splinters off and buries itself to protect your whole personality and allow you to continue living some kind of normal life. And this other piece is locked away until you can deal with it. So the craft that I saw, a lot of people ask me if it was ET craft or whether it was back-engineered craft. And I would say it could have been back-engineered, but it was, to me, it looked like it was ET craft. The saucer simulation was more or less accurate. So this is just going to go over this quick. A place that I worked some years after all this came to light for me, they had these chairs in the facility, and this chair is just like the waiting room chairs that we were sat down in at that medical facility. It's exactly the same. So when I saw that chair, I thought, oh my God, I've got to get a picture of it because it's exactly the same chair. So this put me on a quest to try to find out what the heck had happened to me. What's going on? Little gray guys with big eyes I was prepared for because I'd read books on ET abduction. But I had never heard of military abduction experiences at that time, never a word. So that was intensely frightening stuff to cope with. And I had never heard of it, had me feeling queasy a lot of the time, very scared because I thought, God, somebody went to a lot of trouble to bury this in my memory. And now I'm remembering it and I'm trying to find out what's going on, so I'm talking to people. And so it really had me pretty paranoid for a while, looking over my shoulder all the time. And sometimes I did hear clicking noises on my phone and suspicious sounds on my phone. And it was a very scary time. I started to cross-check my own experiences with others. Bob Lazar also talked about possibly 9 craft out there on the test site. He also, at one point, I heard him say about going home from work and not being able to remember his workday. I guess he took the planes back and forth. I attended lectures in groups to learn more, and there was one group that I went to that really, it was a real tough one. I was sitting in this circle, and everybody was sharing their ideas of what had gone on for them. And when it got to be my turn, I didn't really want to give any details of my experience because I was actually hoping to hear details from other people that would confirm mine. So it became my time to share, and I said, well, it seems from this hypnosis session that I was taken out in the middle of the night when I was in the Air Force to test this radar on UFOs. And then we were taken to what I think was Area 51, and some kind of mind wipe procedure was done on me. And this guy across the room looked at me and he said, did they stick you in the side of the neck with a needle too? And I felt like someone walked over my grave because that's exactly what had been done. I described that whenever I would find those intersecting stories, those intersecting points, it was a sinking in quicksand feeling, you know, and every time it would happen, my deniability of what had happened to me, even though I felt the feelings and re-experienced it to a degree under hypnosis, every time I felt I got those intersecting bits of data that linked with my own, there would be this sinking in quicksand feeling of, oh God, you know, you just really would be upset by that. So again, more reading, study, and research, and again, because I was working for SAIC out on the Nevada test site, I was coping with having to work out there, and it was not easy at all. I didn't want to ride the bus because a bus had taken me to the medical facility in the hypnosis, so I was afraid to get on the bus anymore. So I drove my car out there and drove my car out to work. That meant that I was getting a lot less sleep because most people would sleep on the bus in the 2-hour trip out there. And I wore a buck knife on my belt because that's the only thing resembling a weapon to defend myself, should I need to, that I could get through the gate with. So I had a knife on my belt. I drove my own car for quite a long time. I did settle down and go back to riding the bus at one point, but I really didn't work there that much longer. I was laid off from my job there in 1996. Nothing to do with doing the documentary. But the documentary re-traumatized me because they didn't hide my identity enough. Anybody who knew me knew that was me in that video. It was really, really poorly hidden, and I had done it on the stipulation that my identity would be hidden. So I was really furious and even more scared and even more traumatized that they did such a terrible job hiding my identity. People would come up to me when that documentary was aired years later and say to me, "Was that you on that UFO show?" And I would have to say, yeah, it was. You know, if I wanted to be honest, I had to say yes, it was me. Did a bad job of hiding me, didn't they? So, post-military employers. This is kind of an interesting point. All government contractors from 1984 to 1996. And now I have to wonder, was I being monitored? Most of these government contract jobs require a yearly physical, and that would be a great way to get blood work information on whatever those injections had done to me that I underwent out there. The science applications, the hiring circumstances for SAIC were very unusual. A year after going to work for them, I was out in the trailer with the other people that I worked with. We were called geotechs because we worked with samples of rock that was drilled from Yucca Mountain, laying it out for geologists and cutting samples from it and everything. So I was out in the geotech office area, and my fellow geotechs, which were all guys, said, "You know, Niara, we were really glad when you came to work here." And I said, "Why is that?" And they said, "We all got a pay raise so you could come to work here. Over $1 an hour, retroactive a year or so back." And I said, "What?" You know, and what had happened was when they sent me a job offer, when I interviewed for SAIC, they sent me a job offer that I thought was a pretty low rate of pay, considering that I had to take a bus 2 hours to work, then 2 hours home, and work a 10-hour workday 4 days a week. I just thought, you know, the first offer they made, which I think was about, you know, $7-something an hour, maybe $8 an hour, I just thought, you know, I don't really want to put up with that kind of a schedule for that amount of money. So I sent them a letter back, said thank you very much, but no thanks. And then they sent me another offer at a higher rate. I think it was like $9.15 an hour. And I thought, well, it might be worth it for that. So I went ahead and took the job. And then later on, I found out that they gave all these guys a retroactive pay raise so that I could come to work there. Now, I don't know how many of you work government contracts or ever have, but government contract jobs, they really don't want to pay you any more than they have to. And they begrudgingly give you a 3 to 5% pay increase a year for cost of living. And so it really seemed to me very unusual that they would hire me, an unknown quantity, and give me this pay hike, not even knowing exactly how I'm going to perform in the job, and then have to make it retroactive for the other guys so that they aren't financially abused, just to hire me. I put that together with what I was discovering under hypnosis, and it really gave you the screaming willies to try to look at that. So about from 1997 to 2003, I just had to shut down and run away. I couldn't take anymore. I had done all the study and research and running around to groups and kind of frantically looking for answers. The ETs weren't talking, the government wasn't talking, the military wasn't talking, and I just thought, all these people that have had experiences or study experiences are running around trying to put all these pieces together like mad.